You're listening to 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College in Garden City, New York. I'm Bill McIntyre here with Jon Gallo, bringing you news stories about Long Island and about Long Islanders. Now, I think we have with us on this week's Long Island News, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it Corin Hirsch?
No, you got it right, Corin.
I did.
From Newsday, yep. Exactly.
That's a rarity. Corin is a writer with Newsday, a reporter. And so the one you're working on was the whole outdoor dining scenario.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us a little bit, Corin, about, again, your reporting?
Yeah, so we've all been dining outside. Well, those who are comfortable going out to dine have been sitting under these tents all summer and really sort of spruced up patios and new outdoor spaces. So we wondered what would happen to those as it gets colder. We know the cold winter's coming.
Yeah, today.
What would happen to that scene? Because there's still quite a few people who are uncomfortable going into dining rooms under the circumstances. So I spent a few weeks talking to restaurateurs about what they plan to do to keep people warm, essentially, and to keep their outdoor spaces going well into winter if they can. And, there's a number of interesting solutions out there. There's igloos coming. They made an appearance on Long Island last year. There were a few, but they're these sort of plastic domes that people can fit in, and they might have a window into which you can pass food and drinks so the server doesn't have to come into the space. There are a few people getting those. And greenhouses. I don't know if you guys saw, there was a viral picture of these individual dining greenhouses that were put up in Amsterdam over the summer.
I did catch that. There's been a lot of creative industrial design, definitely. A lot of different usage of PVC plastic and stuff like that.
Yeah, so those are arriving slowly. They're hard to get your hands on if you're an owner. But some of them have their own music systems, their own heating systems. So those.
I guess it makes sense. The nature of dining out as very much experience-based. If you're in a big plastic bubble, you want it to be at least one that makes you feel comfortable and, like you said, maybe gives you some music or some kind of, new experience that makes it feel, okay, well, this is a little different, but it's not necessarily bad different, just different.
No, I think it's kind of fun different. Of course, it's a lot of more expense for restaurants to do this stuff, but they're, I think, maybe quaking in their boots a little bit about what might happen. Come losing all of that seating outside when you're still restricted to 50% inside.
Oh, yeah.
Well, also the bubble itself, the ones I've seen, it looks basically like a dining experience for two.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the greenhouse?
Yeah, some of the small ones.
Or the little pods that they sit and eat in. So that kind of dictates to a restaurant. I mean, they can't have 5 people at a table.
No, well, you think you can, right?
Yeah.
Depending, probably.
I think it's less than 10. I don't know. It does seem to vary by place to place. But you can't have 5 strangers. No, you could.
No. Oh, no.
No more hibachi tables or anything like that.
What's that?
I said, no more hibachi tables where, everyone comes to the empanadas or whatever it may be. And everyone sits down, like you said.
There's a concurrent drama, I guess, here in that the state liquor authority has really stepped up stopping in on businesses. So they've been, every restaurant owner or bar owner I've spoken with says they're getting visited more by the SLA, and so they're really trying to comply in every way that they can so that they don't lose their liquor license. You have to order food. If you want to drink, you have to order food. Under the current circumstances, you can't have more than a certain number of people. You can't, at the bar, people need to be spaced out amply. So there's certain things they really have to adhere to. Yeah, so they have a lot of rules going on. So keeping warm seems to be the theme of fall dinners. Are offering, I think there's a place in Port Jeff offering a $10 discount if you bring your own blanket.
Okay. Yeah.
So some places will have blankets. And then other places have redone their HVAC systems so that the filters are more intense. and they can put some of their customers at ease or their guests at ease in terms of coming inside into the space, that the air is constantly being cleaned.
Yeah. Yesterday, actually, was the first time I ate indoors in this whole process. To be honest, it wasn't even in Nassau. It was up in Westchester County. And, I saw that big, right at the front door, a sign saying we have this certain type of filter. And again, as if they were saying they had whatever other food product or thing you would come to a restaurant for. It was very prominently displayed. Yeah. And they had a nice setup, and obviously they had a parking lot, so it was easier to have outdoor and indoor. But yeah, it is a little bit of a mental trip for someone like myself who lives on the Queens border and inside Queens, where, like you said, right in Great Neck, right in Nassau, it's been happening for a while, thankfully, but, it's still not something in my mind that's been a regular thing. So I don't know, have you been eating out indoors regularly, Corinne? Has that been something that you find yourself, again, comfortable with and enjoying?
Yeah, not regularly. I am somewhat comfortable with it, depending on what I see when I walk in.
Makes sense.
In terms of how spaced people are, how many people are in the space. I ate inside yesterday at a new place in Patchogue called Rise and Grind. It's a breakfast place, and they had partitions between all the booths, and I feel somewhat comfortable. I don't know if that's false sense of security, but I feel like some restaurants take it so seriously that they are making sure their staff are quite safe and that people are spaced out. There are other places that I have gone in where mask compliance can be spotty among staff, so it depends. But for the most part, I do have to go into spaces for my job some of the time, but I'd still prefer to eat outside, I think, just because it's nice right now.
Of course.
Yeah.
I'm curious. One of the words that I've heard from restaurateurs or people in the bar business is arbitrary when they talk about the rules they've been asked to follow. And one example is that, a guy walks into a place and sits at the bar and they tell him he's got to order a sandwich to get a beer. And
there was the whole Cuomo chips problem and everything like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you find that when talking to the restaurant owners?
I think in the first few weeks and months for sure, it was changing constantly and it was hard to follow. And it seemed, I don't know if you recall, maybe April, there are some downtowns where you could walk and people were selling alcohol on the street and people were walking around. So that was a huge change for restaurants. And it was kind of unclear if that was totally legal, but it seemed like it was and everyone was doing it. I think things kept shifting. I remember the day that order came down to have food with drink. That caught everyone by surprise. That was the end of July. So that might be what you're referring to. And now that's become a given. But some bar owners, there was a bar upstate, I think, that put Cuomo chips on the menu. And
exactly.
So you could buy, and it was kind of a big,
finger in the eye of the governor and of the guidelines.
So some places did do that, and have these token food items. I think now the rules are clearer. That's my impression, that people know what's expected of them when they're running a restaurant. So
that makes sense.
I think that when somebody makes an edict like that, they don't know exactly how many people they do affect, because some of the smaller bars, their idea of dinner is for you to call the pizza place next door. Yes. And they'll bring a pizza over and throw it on the bar, and okay, now we have dinner. But it didn't come from that establishment. So they were effectively, in a lot of cases, just kind of dead in the water.
Yeah,
if you couldn't supply food.
Yeah, there's some that have not reopened, I've noticed, as I'm in different downtowns. And I just passed a chalkboard, I forget where it was, yesterday, that said $3 Miller High Life, $2 hot dog dinner is served. So that's their approach to complying with the law.
Oh, yeah. Have we seen a relative decrease in the rate of those SLA violations? Like you said, now that it is a little bit more clear and there's been some time for these guidelines to kind of get fleshed out, or what do you think?
It seemed like the visits were peaking a few weeks ago. A prominent restaurant called Toku in Manhasset just lost their liquor license. I haven't really tracked it day by day to know. But it's hard for us. We've been trying to figure this out, how we can track daily which places are losing, because the SLA has a map where you can see which licenses get suspended, but it doesn't say why, and you sort of have to click on each one individually. It's hard for me to answer whether, from a scientific basis, if it's
the trend
numerous, but it seems from talking to people, they're still coping with multiple visits, like twice a day or once a day, or
interesting,
sometimes a week. So.
Just another question I had, because as I mentioned, I'm over in that Queens border area, and right in my neighborhood is the restaurant El Baco, which is party of that big state lawsuit suing for $2 billion for trying to restore indoor dining. I know obviously that was mostly city-based, but were there any Long Island parties, do you know, involved with that too, trying to get full, again, usage of their indoor dining? Or is that something? Okay.
No, I'm curious.
Yeah, no, it's definitely made a big stir over here, and they already had outdoor dining space, and it seems to have been that they might have been raided in the past, but there seems to be a lot of baggage in that situation. But I was just curious, like you said, if that was something. I know I think gym owners have had similar kind of lawsuits, but Long Island, it seems like because at least there is some dining open, and there's been restrictions lifted for a while, that maybe it's not as intensive. Hopefully.
Well, the city was, it's so restrictive that I really feel for all restaurant owners under the circumstances, but the city seemed especially.
Yeah, already a tough business.
What's that?
I said, already a tough business in regular times, definitely.
Yeah. I was in the city, Manhattan a few weeks ago, and gosh, it just felt so different than the last time I was there pre-COVID. Just so marked in terms of the timing of when things got going during the day and when they shut down, and just the whole feel. But you live in Queens, so I guess you experience it.
Yeah, but restaurants, again, they're adapting. There's on the street dining and stuff like that. But the nature of those kind of food festivals, even, and those big public events, with big thing, the Queens Night Market, those types of. Yeah, exactly. I was curious, just to the topic, what about in Nassau, again, because those are technically outdoor. Have we seen any return to those types of public outdoor cooking events and, whatever town fairs and stuff like that?
I haven't seen too many, no. And I'm doing a story right now about Oktoberfest, which is traditionally just a very big outdoor event everywhere. And I'm encountering a number of virtual Oktoberfest, so... the restaurant will put together a box that you bring home and just sort of unpack your bratwurst and your beer. And,
my!
I know. Platz
for your own band.
Yeah, Platzdeutsch they're usually the ones with the biggest celebration, and they're doing it in a socially distant way, so they have a lot of space to work with. I always mix up if they're in, I think it's Franklin Square, right? I don't know if you've been there. It's an enormous beer garden, a German beer garden, so they are doing the first Oktoberfest, but I haven't seen, besides farmers markets, which have been going on, I haven't seen too many festivals, per se. Okay.
Well, hopefully, as the weather gets warmer, maybe we'll go back in that direction, hopefully next year.
Yeah, it's a strange year, for sure.
I'm curious to see how far they take it as far as eating outside, Thanksgiving dinner, or we're going to get, who knows? I guess if it's a warm climate, if we have warm weather at the time, they can push it as far as they can. But
one part of that I did mention, of course, is heat lamps, which we see every fall at certain places. But I think they're multiplying this year.
That'd be a good investment.
Yeah, they're hard to combine with a tent. Sometimes, but there are heating lamps. A place in Oyster Bay called Cooper Bluff put in these custom fire pits. So you'll see some more fire pits, I think. But how far can you take that? The first snowstorm, in December. Although we had a pretty mild winter last year, so maybe that'll be the case this year. You could just layer up.
Exactly, and spend some time in those igloos or something like that. Make it feel like you're really out in Alaska dining or something like that, I guess.
Yeah.
A role play.
One trend that has happened this year out here, too, at restaurants is drive-ins, where people drive up, stay in their car, and the food's delivered to the car. So I wonder if that will continue in some fashion. Yeah. And they seem to have kind of petered off right now, but anytime a restaurant would put one together, it would sell out for weeks in advance. Like, people were just hungry to get out and take part in these kind of slightly collective events.
Yeah, the social really experience of that, like you said, collective dining. For people who haven't eaten out at all since this has started, I guess, what can they expect, I guess, when they do dine inside or outside that's different now than, in normal times?
Of course, more spacing between tables, less, hardly any place feels crowded, although I'm sure there's outliers, but there's more space between tables. Servers are masked. They're checked. They're health checked when they come to work. So I think they have their temperatures checked and answer some questions, just as with schools or anything like that. So your servers and kitchen staff are masked. If there is a bar, you'll see sort of clusters of seats separated from each other. So you could come with maybe 3 people and sit over here, and then 2 people could sit over there. Some restaurants have partitions up. But there's one in Port Jeff Burrito that has partitions at the bar. They've built this big sort of structure with wood and plastic to keep these pods at the bar. But some restaurants, like the one I was in yesterday, Rise and Grind in Patchogue, have plastic between booths. So there's some of that. And then there's smaller places too that can't really afford these renovations, and they might have makeshift patios outside or just a table inside, or if they've gone completely to takeout. But generally, just the masking, the partitions, the space. I think most places you go to now, it feels much different than it did early last March.
That makes sense. And I know you spoke about the SLA and their role in enforcement and a lot of this, but what else, I guess, is it the county health department? Are they also, the major actors and trying to enforce guidelines and make sure, like you said, that the workplace standards are followed, or how has that been working?
I haven't heard too much about health department visits. It seemed, my impression, and I'm speaking off the cuff, like I'm not an authority on exactly what is happening day by day at restaurants, but it seems like the SLA is sort of doing that kind of visual check of, to make sure everything in the front is well. I don't know that much about kitchens. It's a good question whether the health department's dropping them, and no one's mentioned it to me. Really. Okay. Seems like more of the policing is going on in the front of the house. So sure, there must be some going on in the back as well. Yeah,
cooperation between a lot of different agencies, obviously, at the state and county level.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
I think I just think it's going to be the same as the entertainment clubs and things like that. When the dust settles, we're going to see who's left.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We're still looking at that because some just can't hang on. It reminds me of, there used to be a crab house across from Penn Station.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all you could eat crabs. And that someone basically saw that, well, that's what drove them out of business. And he said, well, why is that? He said, because they needed to turn that table over, one table, 10 times in a day. But when people come in to eat all you can eat crabs, they sit there all day. So that's what they found, is that they weren't turning the tables over for the amount of real estate. And it's a direct correlation. So if a little bar can sell enough beer to get their little percentage and keep moving, then they're okay. But if they can't, it's not too long before they have to,
I think it's going to struggle for sure.
And there's somewhere our listeners can follow your reporting, obviously in Newsday. Are you on social media somewhere?
Yes. Newsday Feed Me is our Instagram account where we post a lot of what we're eating. On Facebook, Newsday does post a lot of the food content, but most all of our stories appear under the Feed Me tab at newsday.com. And then we're in the paper with our food content on Thursdays and Fridays. On Fridays right now, into the fall, we're running Top 100, which is a major project we work on each year. And what happened to my throat? Excuse me. It started a few weeks ago, and we picked the top 100 restaurants among thousands, if not 10,000 or more, that we have on Long Island. And we're running that in successive installments on Fridays in the paper. You can check it out online.
Great.
Excellent.
So, very good listeners to keep a lookout for that, definitely.
Well, and we want to thank Corin Hirsch for joining us and enlightening us on the outdoor dining situation, and also thank Newsday because they make these interesting folks available to us to talk to on the air. So thank you, Corinne, very much for coming in.